Hello PC gaming people, welcome to another PCGamesN hardware show. I'm Beard Guy.
And this is the best I can do. It's Jacob.
And today we're checking out the recently released RTX 2070 from Nvidia. So what does the latest 20 series graphics card have to offer?
I don't know.
We'll find out.
But first, the elephant in the room. And no, that's not another new nickname we've come up with for our Dave.
Nice.
Sorry, bud. How come we're a week behind the times on the RTX 2070 launch? The simple answer, because we're Brits.
Yeah, you will have seen the initial reviews, which went live the day before the official launch of the RTX 2070, were all based on Founders Edition cards. And that's because the US sites were supplied with them the weekend before. In the UK, however, well, Nvidia wanted it to be an AIC launch.
That means Nvidia wanted the partners to supply us GPUs instead, but wanted them to supply us with MSRP cards rather than the expensive Founders-like overclock cards. And somewhat inevitably, the partners only had those pricey early adopter taxing graphics cards available.
So we've had to wait for one of the few MSRP cards to arrive in the office because the partners weren't allowed to send us their faster GPUs. To be honest, it's actually a smart move by Nvidia, even given the delay. The reception for the 2080 was pretty lukewarm, especially in the UK, and that could have likely gotten a lot more frosty with a $600 2070 that could only just outperform a GTX 1080 that costs over $100 less.
An annoying move then, but an understandable and smart one, from a moderately cynical marketing point of view.
But here it is, the $499, £460 Palette RTX 2070, a reference edition card that can game faster than a similarly priced GTX 1080, but with some potential ray tracing chops to boot.
The RTX 2070 is the third tier Turing graphics card from the GeForce team, and quite possibly the minimum entry requirement for RTX gaming going forward, whenever that deigns to turn up anyways. So far we're still waiting for the Windows 10 October update to properly arrive,
without unnecessarily deleting users' data,
and deliver us the DirectX 12 update that brings real-time ray tracing to the huddled masses.
Though the deep learning super sampling DLSS feature still hasn't been launched yet either, despite not actually being tied into Windows' somewhat abortive update.
The GPU at the heart of the RTX 2070 is a different chip from the other Turing silicon we've seen so far. The TU106 is almost exactly a TU102 from the RTX 2080 Ti, cut right down the middle. Its GPC structure is identical, but it has 36 SMs as opposed to 72 SMs in the full-fat TU102 chip.
This reference RTX 2070 is clocked in at 1410 MHz and nominally boosts to 1620 MHz. The Founders Edition is rated to hit 1710 MHz under boost, giving it that 90 MHz overclock. But in real terms, this card will hit 1830 MHz in-game anyway, though the specifically overclockable capable GPU used only in the Founders cards will give you more headroom for the money.
The TU106 core is a 10.8 billion transistor chip, which is 26% fewer than the RTX 2080. But with that, you also get 288 tensor cores and 36 RT cores for all that next-gen, as yet unavailable, future graphics goodness, and the same 8GB of GDDR6 that you get in the RTX 2080.
Which leaves the new Turing cards with a whole lot of extra silicon inside them that can't actually yet be used for anything other than weighing down their massive GPUs. And that means the 2070 can only be judged against what it can do in traditional gaming.
Game on.
You can immediately see why we were only entrusted with the reference clocked MSRP versions of the RTX 2070 as soon as you see the gaming performance of the new card, and most especially how it performs compared with the GTX 1080.
The GTX 1080, to all intents and purposes, is essentially the same price as the MSRP of the reference design, and Nvidia have managed the necessary performance uplift. The RTX 2070 is faster than the GTX 1080, but only just.
Looking at the 3D Mark time SPI result, and you're getting about 4% extra performance, with a maximum performance hike of around 16% on Assassin's Creed Origins at 4K. And that's where the 2070 is performing at its best compared with the last-gen cards, at 4K.
When you look at the 1080p performance, you're sometimes actually seeing the GTX 1080 still having the performance lead, such as in Far Cry 5 and Warhammer 2. And at 1440p, the frame rates are largely identical.
It looks like, at the lower end of the resolution spectrum, the comparative lack of CUDA cores in the RTX 2070 compared with the GTX 1080, that's 2304 versus 2560, that's holding the card back. While there is some clever stuff baked into the new Turing SMs, such as concurrent FP and integer operations, at 1080p both cards are flying, and that's where the extra parallel processing of the old GPU comes in handy.
At higher resolutions, the improved memory and caching of the Turing GPU gives it the edge.
And compared with the Turing GPU above it in the GeForce pecking order, the 2070 is around 20 or 30% behind the RTX 2080. But then this reference card here is about some 60% cheaper than the Founders 2080 that we've tested. So at least there's that.
Got that. So yeah, Nvidia was right not to send us either the Founders Edition card or one of the $600 plus overclock cards from the partners. They're really not GPUs that we'd be able to recommend right now.
Nope. But at the MSRP of around $499 or £450, then the reference RTX 2070 becomes a worthy high-end graphics card, worth your consideration. And that's especially true if you're looking to game at the top resolutions with your next GPU purchase. As a 4K card, it's obviously superior to the GTX 1080.
And we can't forget that you are eventually going to be able to get hybrid real-time ray tracing with this third-tier Turing GPU, even if it is at a lower level compared with the hyper-expensive RTX 2080 and 2080 Ti cards.
Granted, ray tracing is probably a technology that's only going to become a genuine reason to buy in the coming GPU generations, but we're still glad that Nvidia has at least started the support.
Even if Microsoft hasn't.
No. The main takeaway then is if you've been looking to spend GTX 1080 money on a new graphics card upgrade, then you should actually be spending it on a reference clocked version of the RTX 2070, like this here palette dual card.
The RTX 2070 then is a recommended buy, with a few major caveats, like for the love of whatever deity you choose, don't spend more than $500 on one of those overclocked or Founders Edition cards.
So, the RTX 2070 is a decent 4K card with a ray tracing feature for essentially the same price as the slightly slower GTX 1080.
Thanks for watching, and remember, give us the classic like and subscribe one too, and ring that bell.
Ding ding!
Also check back at PCGamesN.com for the very latest and greatest in PC gaming and hardware.
Thanks for watching again. Bye.